Welcome to Women in Paint. Whether your paint story is dripless or an old school mix of project management, business ownership, or modern estimation, the stories of women in paint are now part of the industry's rising success. We'll educate, encourage, and promote diversity and gender equality by giving you a behind-the-scenes look at our proven skills, business acumen, and driving force that propels anyone to find meaningful opportunities and a career path that challenges lives through paint. Now let's welcome your host, Michael Cheney.
All right, welcome to the show. I've got you're my buddy, you're my friend, you're my teammate, you wear so many hats these days, Dan. I've got Dan Street on with me. He is the director of sales and marketing at No Drip Painting. He is to date our biggest hire, and we are investing in our growth and future with him. So Dan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, I appreciate it, boss lady. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to just dig into our sales process, right? So we are at a point where we are improving our sales process. It's one of the main reasons you are on board and you have come into the business because we're at a point at No Drip Painting where we are trying to get to the next level. We know where we're going, so we are investing in that future right now. So we're going to have a great conversation today on a portion of our sales process. And I will say that this is like super important. At one point in my earlier days of trying to figure out how to run this business, I didn't understand how important a solid sales process is, but it's really kind of the backbone of the business. So let's first just start and give a little introduction about you. You've been on the show before, but give your background. You've got lots of experience, way more experience than I do in the sales world. So give a bit of a background so people know that you actually do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I like to think I do. So I've been in outside sales for right around 20 years, give or take some time there. Most recently, I've been in the remodeler and builder space for the last 10. I've sold everything from security services, whether it's security guards or alarm systems. I've sold roofing materials. I've sold building materials. I've sold interior doors and trim work. I've trained people. I've done quite a bit. Anything you can think of in the builder space to build a house, I've sold. Those products, windows, doors, siding, all of those things. So yeah, I've been around for a little bit. I've been around the block a couple times for sure. I found that through all those years, the biggest thing for me is, the widget doesn't really matter that you're selling, the service or the product. I found it really comes down to the process of having that structure there to provide the best service and in turn the best results for the company.
Yeah. So now you're in the paint world and you're absolutely loving it.
Yeah, it's an awesome community for sure.
So over a series of 3 shows, we're going to break down our sales process. Today, we're going to talk about 2 pieces in particular that we call the introduction and the discovery portion of our sales process. So let's dive right in here. What do I mean when we talk about introductory? What does that mean in terms of how our sales process is set up?
Yeah, so I think this is really important. It's almost more important than, towards the tail end of our process with the presentation and the close. This is making sure that, our estimators are in the right mindset, that they're focused, that whatever craziness happened the night before or that morning is kind of off their minds, and that they're relying on that structure that we've built out and that they're ready to go when they walk through that front door of that lead.
Yeah, let's park on mindset for a minute. Let's talk about what mindset we are trying to teach and coach our team to have. And then we'll talk about the flip side of that. If you're struggling with mindset, what that looks like, and maybe even as leaders, how we can identify that. So what is the mindset that you're going for? What are you teaching your sales reps?
Yeah, so the phrase that I like to use, and I know you've heard me say this in the office, is we want to sell the trip to Maui, not the 5 a.m. flight to get there, right? So we have our team really focused on being confident and in the time that they've spent learning our process, learning our products, networking with our suppliers, and just really having the confidence to know that what they're saying and what they're talking about is going to happen. And then, throughout the culture that you've built at the company, that they're going to be able to rely on the production side of the business to really provide that high touch service that they're in there talking about, and continue that high touch service that they're in there talking about with our clients.
Yeah. So there's definitely, I would say you have to be confident in your product, right? In your processes. And some ways that we've spent time, in teaching that and really allowing the team to be confident is through training, right? Like education, knowledge is power.
Yep.
We bring in our vendors, like you said, whether that's our Sherwin-Williams rep, whether it's, we do a lot of decorative finishes. So if we're bringing in Roma Bio or other companies we partner with, we also give our sales folks a look or a peek behind the curtain when it comes to production, right? So our sales folks should feel really confident about, some of our processes and even the tools that we're using. They know that we're going to use the best products. So I'm with you. There's this educational piece. The other thing that I think that there is when it comes to mindset, at least there always was for me when I was in a sales role, and even now I would say as a business owner, is learning how to mindset that I'm going to get the sale. It's almost like I remember, when I was in the sales role for No Drip, where I felt so confident in what I was going to say, how I was going to deliver it, the product that we're presenting, that I would just show up thinking I'm about to get this job, right? As I'm knocking on the door, I'm like, well, here's another job I'm going to get. Is that the right mindset? Or was I just way off basis there?
No, I think you're 100% right. And we'll talk about this a little bit later once we talk about, getting into the discovery phase of our process. But, I tell our reps, that our estimators, that they always need to be at a 7, and we just had a situation the other night where one of our estimators went to a later in the afternoon, early evening appointment, and she knocked the door, ran through the whole exterior project, presented the estimate to the homeowner, and he just about came unglued. His expectation of budget was nowhere in line with the perceived value and what the cost of the project was. While our estimator was outside, measuring and getting everything together, 2 of the neighbors stopped by, and she ended up selling the second neighbor, and later today has a follow-up appointment scheduled, which we'll talk about in another episode, to close that one as well. So, she didn't get the first, but she got the other 2 because she had the right mindset, and she had that, that boss mentality, had the confidence behind our production side of the business, had a confidence as far as the process goes, and had her mindset in the right place, that she's going to end up closing 2 other sales. And oddly enough, the initial appointment called her yesterday to kind of check in with her after he'd already told her no way. So, I still think that, we talked about it late last night at the office, I still think there's an outside shot that first appointment comes back around again because of our process, and because we talk about the no drip difference and all the differentiators of working with us. And even if that original appointment doesn't, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I think you'd agree. We'll take 2 out of 3 all day long. You know what I mean?
All day, every day.
That's right. It's on Sunday, right?
So with your experience, even maybe what you've seen with our team, what you've seen in the past, how can mindset also be a detriment if you're not showing up with the right mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what I've told our estimators is that, throughout training is like, we always need to be at a 7, on a scale of 1 to 10, we always need to be at a 7, no matter what happened the night before, or, if you're having a disagreement with your significant other, you always need to be at a 7 for that next homeowner that you walk into, the next appointment, because you don't know when it's going to break that slump, or is the opportunity to turn it around, or close out your month, or hit your monthly goal or your quarterly goal. So always being at that 7, whether you've sold $5 or $5 million for the month, you always need to be at that level 7, because it allows you to still provide everything for your homeowner and still be that sales professional and represent your company well.
Yeah, so I know sometimes it's hard to like you have a sale and then you feel like you're on top of the world and then the next appointment or two you're not getting the sale and then you kind of feel like you're down the dumps, and what you're saying is try and keep that even keel because you want to be able to show up with the right mindset. You don't want to be too high, you don't want to be too low.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't have your second appointment for the day, where the first one went really bad. And then you walk in bringing in that drama and that negative
Yeah.
attitude and mindset with you because you're not doing service by your customer. And you're not providing that, at least for us, you're not providing that high touch service that we tout so highly.
Yeah. I think it's also important to say that we give the estimate on the spot. This is a change that we've made over the last 6 months or so. We've really honed in on it this year. We've improved our process. This is a huge advantage, I believe, in our industry because not a lot of people have the, I would say, capacity or systems to give an estimate on the spot. But I do think that when you're presenting on the spot, this mindset is super important, right? It's a little bit different than if you're taking that estimate and giving it to them 3 days later.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I know you and I've looked at the numbers. Our close rates have definitely increased
Hmm.
significantly by presenting on the spot. I think it speaks to the company being more structured, more professional. I think that it also gives confidence in the estimator as well to know that all the time that was spent by leadership to build out. We use Paint Scout to build out everything in there, and we've still got some growing pains there. We just had a exterior measuring training yesterday or day before, on little odds and ends and things like that. But I think them being able to present on the spot is a convenience for the homeowner.
Yeah.
I think it allows the homeowner to feel more comfortable that they're working with a structured company, that operates off of a P&L, really has a lot of confidence in their business as well. And that, again, that we're not a fly by night or a chuck in a truck or a man in a van, as we call it around the office, and that we're really here for the long haul. And I think that little things like our dress code and attire expectations that we
Hmm.
have, all tie together in the end when we get to that close phase of our sales process. And it just allows the homeowners to feel a little more comfortable knowing that they're working with a professional company.
Totally. So you always give really good tips and we've implemented them, like where to park, how, you knock on the door, what you do. Can you kind of share some of those introductory tips that you coach to and what our team does?
Yeah. So when we built out the sales process, the SOPs, I was intentionally very granular in that because I know, again, how important SOPs are to have in place, but also to be able to provide the best experience for our homeowners and our clients that we work with. So we talk about, we're not going to knock on the door more than 5 minutes earlier than the scheduled appointment unless the estimator has reached out to the homeowner and talked with them and the homeowner's okay with that. So, we shoot to be there 5 or 10 minutes early. That allows the estimator a few minutes to get their mind right, make sure that company cam, which we use, is already set up with the open file, and that they've just got their head cleared from the traffic jam that they were just in, or that crazy driver that cut them off or whatever. And it just allows them a minute to take a deep breath before they go on stage, per se, right? So we never park in driveways unless we've got some trophy home that's got a really long driveway. We always park on the street because inevitably the day that we park in a driveway will be the day that something from one of the fleet, our fleet of vehicles drips on the driveway, and inevitably it will have just been recoated or paved or sealed or whatever, and then we've got to deal with that liability. So we always park on the street. I also think that it gives more exposure to our vehicles
Mhm.
being on the street, which of course our fleet is wrapped and branded accordingly. So I think it's just a moving commercial at that point, right? It gives more exposure to our vehicles. Almost every neighborhood has the neighborhood watch, patrolman, and they will see the vehicle and things like that. So we always park on the street. Again, we're there a few minutes early to allow the estimator to clear their head, make sure all the tech is set up properly. Paint Scout is ready to go. Company Cam has the file already created. And then they kind of take that last deep breath, get their drink of water or coffee or what have you, and then we approach the house.
Yeah. And you said that we get granular in our SOPs, and you're right. So let's talk about even what we coach to as far as when you knock on the door.
Yeah. So once we're approaching the house, the first thing that they're doing is looking for any identifying rapport building things that are, my kid goes to so-and-so high school, or especially here in Central Ohio, every other house has a Ohio State Buckeyes, banner out front. Any military insignia, we're looking for those things as we're approaching the house to keep in our back pocket to be able to use for rapport building later on, not in a malicious way, but just a way to bridge the gap with that homeowner and allow the homeowner to realize that this isn't a sleazy, slimy salesperson walking in the door. It's a real person. It's a real person who's got real goals and is somebody that's there to help and provide quite frankly, a luxury service. I mean, anybody could slap paint on the walls, but to provide a luxury service at a fair price and give them a great experience. So as we're approaching, we're looking for those rapport building indicators. We walk up to the door, we knock the door, we ring the bell, and then we're taking a couple of steps back. If it's a normal porch, they could step back to the first step. That's usually what I do, because I in my opinion, and I think you tend to agree based on our past conversations, these homeowners don't really know what to expect. Even though they've gone to our website or through our Facebook page or called the office and scheduled an appointment, they still don't know who's going to show up. And I think there's that stereotypical idea of what a painter looks like, the painter rags and things like that, covered in paint. And that's not the presentation that we have. Even our painters don't do that. You've got, on the production side of the business, very stringent standards for the way our painters look. So we want to continue that or set that stage from the very beginning. So, we knock the door, we take a few steps back, and just so we're not imposing on the front door when someone opens the door.
Yeah. Okay. So we show up, we're on time, we're not spilling oil in their driveway. We're knocking on the door. We look professional. We're dressed well. We're branded. We've got logos on the vehicle. We step inside, and now this is what we call our discovery phase. What does that look like? What is it that is being said to the customer the moment we step in the home?
Yeah, so I'm not a big script guy when it comes to helping estimators. Again, I liken our sales process to scaffolding. So we step in the door, and the very first thing that they ask, past the greeting where they identify who they are and who they're with, we ask if we need to take our shoes off, because I think that indicates that we've thought through this. We have a structured process in place, and we know and we recognize that we're a guest in their home. And most times, more often than not, homeowners will tell us not to worry about it. But I still think it's just a little detail that at the end of the day, when the entire process is put together, that's just one of those things that gets asked or gets thought about as, well, that was awfully polite. And, clearly they have that care and concern for being in my home. So we ask about taking our shoes off. And then from there, the way I've trained our team is that once the homeowner lets us in the home, then it's our meeting. We're there. We're the paint professionals, and we immediately set an agenda. And the reason that we do that is because we're the professional, number one. Number two, it allows the homeowner, again, who could have some anxiety, whether this is their first or third or fifth estimate. It shows them that we've got structure in place and that I'm going to take care of this, and here's how this is going to go, because I do this all day long. So we set our agenda. We talk about, hey, listen, here's how today's going to look. I'm going to come in. You're going to show me the spaces. I'm going to take some measurements. I'm going to take some notes. I'm going to take some pictures. We'll talk through a few things. And then I'll step back out to my vehicle. I'll build up the estimate, and then I'll come back in and present that to you. How does that sound? And usually the homeowners receive that very well. It also allows the estimator kind of a look inside of what's on the homeowner's mind as well, and what their expectations are. More often than not, you get a reaction, a kind, and kind of, you almost see the homeowners kind of relax a little bit, because they don't know what's going to happen. And now that you've kind of filled them in, it also gives that exchange of power. It gives you the power back, because when you're knocking on the door, the homeowners have the power as to whether they're going to answer or not. Now, obviously, if they've scheduled the appointment in their home, they're going to open that door. But until that exchange of power can happen, they're kind of, they hold all the cards at that point.
Yeah, so we're laying out the agenda. I want to take a few steps back because I think it's important to kind of talk about some of the logistics of how this whole thing comes together. At least I know I've always been interested to see like the details of how businesses work. So the first thing is scheduling an appointment. The customer has the freedom to self-schedule and pick the time that they want. We don't do any sort of process where they request a few times and then we call them and approve a time. So that's one convenience factor that I think that we give. And over the years I've gotten good feedback from customers on how easy it was to schedule an estimate with us. They can of course call in to the office and we schedule as well. What about same day estimates, same day appointments? How do you feel about same day appointments? Meaning a customer calls the office at 9 o'clock today and they say, hey, can someone come out today and give me an estimate? How do you feel about those?
Yeah, I think it's a great option to have. I think, again, it speaks to the company being structured and having options when it comes to estimator availability. I know we've had this conversation in the past about that seems to be a higher close rate as well. I think that shows the homeowner is intentional, and is ready to move forward. It's not that stereotypical tire kicker. So, and our team is pretty good about, even if the schedules don't show availability, we can, send out a message. Hey, I've got this happening at 5 o'clock or whatever time it is. And there's always an estimator that's ready to jump in and take that appointment last minute, if their schedule will allow it. So it really shows to the customers that we've got opportunity to help them in their time of emergency or need or whatever it looks like for them.
Yeah. And I'm going to make a confession here. There was a time when running this business that someone would call in and want a same day estimate. And I was like, oh my gosh, are they crazy? Why would they think that we were going to come out and do a same day estimate? Well, it turns out the reason I thought that was so crazy is because we did not have the structure to do it, right? Especially when I was doing the estimating, I'm running the projects, I'm wearing all the hats. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone would ask that. Lo and behold, years later, it's actually a huge asset to be able to offer that. And so, as Dan said, if we have the opportunity to do a same day estimate, we really try to try to be flexible and make that happen. And I know that we're working on being better at reporting and metrics and stuff. So right now this is just data plus feelings, but we absolutely believe that we have a higher close rate with on the same day estimates. Okay.
And to that
Yeah.
point, Michael, we've the same kind of situation on weekend appointments. We don't offer those, because work-life balance is important to us, at the office. But still, we've got estimators that are willing to, they've come to me and said, hey, can you make some availability on my calendar for, Saturday morning?
Yes.
See if they can stir anything up. And we had that happen, just a couple of weeks ago, where an estimator opened up their schedule for the first half of Saturday. They said, hey, I've got some time. I'm not doing anything. Might as well try to grab some appointments. And that was on a Tuesday. And we opened up the calendar for Saturday morning from 8 to 12. And the estimator grabbed 2 appointments off of that. And then we're running, that same estimator is running one this Sunday morning, just because the homeowner called in and said, hey, this is when I'm available. Do you guys have any availability? And we put that message out to the team. Hey, does anybody want this? And this estimator is the same one that worked that Saturday, is taking that appointment, and it's a decorative finish. It's a lime wash. So, that's an inflated cost. So that's a great opportunity for the estimator to get a good sale. I think it shows a lot of concession for the homeowner as well, that this company has somebody who's a real go-getter and wants to provide that service to that homeowner. So I think it really affords us the good opportunity that a lot of our competition here locally doesn't want to offer.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's talk about, before we get into kind of the discovery piece of this process, talk about how long our estimates are booked for and why we do what we do.
Yeah. So right now we've got our estimates on our calendar set for 90 minutes, with a 30-minute buffer in between to allow that drive time. We feel that, again, with the help of Paint Scout, that allows us enough time to show up, get our measurements, complete our rapport building, build out the the estimate in Paint Scout in our cars, and then come back inside and really present a full and complete estimate to that homeowner, highlighting our differentiators, building out the value of our projects, the quality of the finish that we leave, and really give a full and complete experience to those clients.
Yeah. So, I have a whole list of things that I've done wrong, Dan. And this is another thing that I did wrong for many years. When I was doing estimates, I would book estimates for 30 minutes. Now, when I say that now, it sounds so crazy. But what would happen is, one, I wasn't set up to do estimates on the spot. The other thing that would happen is, it's really hard to do a full house estimate in 30 minutes, right? A full interior, especially if you're measuring. Now, if you're guesstimating like I used to do, and you just walk in and kind of throw a number out there, maybe. But what was happening is I was really lacking on my delivery of full interiors, because the truth is I wasn't really giving myself enough time. 30 minutes certainly doesn't give enough time to present on the spot, but that was a big lesson I learned, because if there's one type of estimate that you want to spend extra time on and you want to deliver on the spot, it's going to be the full interior or full exterior repaint, right? So we do 90 minutes, as you said, and that gives us plenty of time to deliver the estimate in person right there with the homeowner. Now, what happens if the estimate only does take 30 minutes? Maybe it's just a small bathroom. What does our estimator do if they've wrapped up that appointment earlier? What options do they have?
Yeah. So what we prefer that they do is spend some of that time, whether that's in a church parking lot, or they go to the local Starbucks, or even come back to the office based on the rest of their day. They got the opportunity to do some follow-up there. Our team, we're working through some challenges there, but about like that calendar management and blocking off time in their calendar for, administrative tasks or intentional follow-up with homeowners. But if they've got that whole bath that only takes a short amount of time, and they've got another 40 minutes or whatever it is after that blocked estimate time, they have some time to go out and do some follow-ups. They're able to hang door hangers in the neighborhood, knock doors, to try to generate some of those self-generated leads. And depending on what the rest of their day looks like, if they knock a door, they could run that estimate right there, or schedule it for later in the week or when they're available to do so. We have a great team here that are hungry and have intentional personal goals on top of the business metrics of expectations we have for them to hit as well. And they're really driven to be successful and as beneficial to them and the team as possible.
Yeah, right on. All right, let's talk about discovery. So we've talked about introduction, we've talked about a little bit of logistics here. Discovery, what does that mean, and what are we doing after we've connected, we're in the home, we've laid out the agenda? What exactly is our discovery process?
Yeah, so again, I've done this for a really long time. I've worked with business to business sales, I've done business to consumer sales. To me, the first thing we always want to know is, like, why am I here? You know what I mean? And of course we could always ask it that way, but I think there's an opportunity here to really focus on open-ended questions. So the way that I've trained our team is, once we set the agenda, and we're walking into the home, while we're taking our shoes off or whatever that looks like, we're also looking at that time for other rapport building indicators as well. The military insignia on the built-in cabinetry, or the picture of them in, on the top of a mountain skiing or golfing, or, whatever that is. So they've got some things to talk about when that conversation lulls. But the first question that I like for our team to ask once we're past that agenda setting is this your forever home? And again, I'm not a big script guy, but there are certain phrases that I like us to use, and that's one of them. Is this your forever home? And again, you could phrase that a bunch of different ways, and I've done a ton throughout my years of A and B testing. I just feel like that phrase that question asks what we want to know, most importantly, but secondly, it's phrased in a way that kind of catches most people off guard. And I've had it happen more times than not, where when I ask that question, the homeowners kind of give me a weird reaction, which is what I'm looking for, honestly. because then I have the opportunity to rebut that and say, well, the reason I'm asking that is because as the paint professional here, that it gives me the opportunity to make sure that I'm suggesting the things that are going to be most beneficial to you, whether that's a different product, or if that's a different, maybe we need to add this or take this space away with respect to budget, because I don't see it being as much of an ROI if you're selling your home, or if you're going to live here forever and ever, then maybe we look at, a higher end product, a better performing product. It gives us the chance to add spaces again, or take them away with respect to budget, and just, again, kind of settle into that paint professional seat that we have. And again, I want it to catch them off guard. The thinking is because I want to be able to answer to that as, I've done this for a long time. You can trust me, because that's the most important thing, right? Like, we're not the sleazy, slimy sales team that's coming in and trying to grab every last dollar you have available. We want to provide a great experience for our customers and our clients, so that we get that return option down the road.
Yeah, and you know what? I just wonder. I mean, I don't have any data to prove this, but when I think of someone asking, "Is this your forever home?" and if your answer is yes, then you might be a little more inclined to rethink your budget, right? So people often just have no idea how much painting costs. So maybe they've got, okay, I want to spend $3,000, and then you come in and you ask them, "Is this your forever home?" and they're saying yes. It might make them question, maybe it's worth more than $3,000, right? So I wonder if there's kind of a psychological thing that could happen when someone is actually saying out loud, "Yes, this is my forever home." So anyway,
Yeah,
just
and to that
yeah,
point, Michael, the psychology behind it. When we're going through and building out our estimates, we're titling the names of bedrooms by who
yeah,
stays in that bedroom. It's not bedroom 1, bedroom 2, primary suite. We're titling that Timmy's room, Susie's room, because again, the psychology behind that is, thanks to Paint Scout, we break out by spaces. It's like Timmy's room is $800 or whatever the number is, right? It's like, is Timmy worth $800, as opposed to, something
yeah.
super sterile and generic as bedroom 2, or the blue room, or whatever it is, right? It just, the psychology, it ties the dollar figure to that person who obviously they care about. It's their family. So it justifies it more at that point too.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's just little, I'll say, tips like that I think go a long way. All right. Anything else that we should touch on in the last minute or two about our discovery process?
Yeah, I think it's just the open-ended questions. And I know we're kind of up against timing here. So just open-ended questions, why is it you're wanting to paint? Is there a baby on the way, or you got a new dog and this is going to be the dog's room or the cat room, or I was in a house where they had a bird room, which was terrifying in and of itself. But it's just like, why am I here? Let's talk through it. And then through that process, even if it's an introverted person who doesn't really talk a ton or doesn't really dive deep into answers, those open-ended questions allow you to pull information out of your client, to then not use in a malicious way, but to use to have conversation, to build rapport, to bring that person into the fold a little bit more, so that then, once they become our client, then they're truly in the No Drip family. You know what I mean? And then it allows them to, even on the production side, to curtail their customer, thank you gift towards what's important to those clients.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that because some of this fact finding or discovery that our sales folks are doing ultimately ends up helping production with customer experience. So just to kind of extrapolate on that a little bit, for example, if a customer has a new puppy, right, and that's discovered during our meeting with them, then our estimator will put that in the crew notes and say, "Hey, new puppy," maybe even throw the puppy's name in there. And then once we do that project and we close that out, then our production manager, or a crew leader can give the homeowner a gift, a thank you gift, which we're known for doing. And maybe it's a gift that has a bunch of dog treats, dog toys, and stuff like that. Or if it's a new baby, right? Or we discover that there's a certain bottle of wine that they love. It gives us a chance to really nail it from the customer experience aspect.
Yeah.
So
And
discovery,
to that
yeah.
point, Sorry, Michael. To that point, also, we had a situation not too long ago where the estimator found out the homeowner was painting the home because she had just recently lost her husband, and that ended up in the crew notes in Paint Scout. So when we went out and did our complimentary color consultation, our interior designer knew that going into the appointment, so she was able to kind of keep that in mind and still provide that caring, appointment to help the homeowner with the color consultation. And she ended up being there for like 2 hours, just kind of, she left the house crying herself because it was almost a therapy session between her and the client. And then, of course, that note stays in there throughout the production process. And this woman was over the moon once we produced the project because, obviously it's a really unfortunate situation, very tragic, but it allowed us to still kind of have the high touch service, but also have that sympathy and empathy for that homeowner and just be cognizant of that before we even knock on the door for that color consultation and for production as well.
Absolutely. All right, Dan, thank you for joining me. This is the first of 3 episodes that we're going to do about our sales process. So I hope everybody joins us back here on the next one. We will see you there.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for joining us on Women in Paint. We hope you feel compelled to follow your own path and use your compassion, strength, and skills to build a career in the paint industry. And if you like this episode as much as we did, give it a simple click to subscribe so we can invite you back to our next episode. And be sure to share it on all your socials. Remember, Women in Paint, stir up more than just a can of eggshell.